Welcome to Touched and Empowered, a show created to empower individuals to value their lives by hosting think tank discussions that will inspire positive action. Touched and Empowered with Katie and Ace starts now.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Touched and Empowered. My name is Katie. I am one of the co-hosts, and in this episode, I'm going to share with you my purpose behind this podcast. And I don't want to talk about it. So let me start from the beginning. There are things that touch our lives, both in the positive and the negative. I can remember hearing the musical Cats and the song Memory for the first time, and the goosebumps that covered my body, and just how much emotion was poured into that song that made me want to cry along with Grisabella. I also remember the conversation that started with, "I have something to tell you, but I don't know how you're going to react." There are so many things in this world that touch us and not physically. Well, yeah, there are a lot of things that touch us physically, but I'm talking about on an emotional level. There are so many things that touch us to our core. They could be positive, they could be negative, they could be somewhere in between, they could be completely unknown to us because we haven't experienced that emotion before. We don't know what's going to happen next because it's rocked our foundation. Those are the types of touched that I personally refer to over the series of this interviews that I'm doing with Ace. You see, in case you haven't figured it out yet, both Ace and I have been touched and have been empowered to do something about it. For me, my family has been touched by suicide. One of my sisters, Stephanie, gave a 7-minute talk about her initial suicide attempt at the age of 13 and the multiple attempts that followed, and how she wanted to get the tools into the hands of teenagers before they needed them, because that was when she struggled the most. At least that's how I remember her talk. But that 7-minute talk launched a movement. It launched the Teen Suicide Prevention Society, which was founded and created by my sister Stephanie, myself, our sister Jamie, and our mom, Jackie Simmons, which you'll hear a lot about Jackie because I refer to her, especially her TEDx talk, when it comes to the Teen Suicide Prevention Society. So you can search that, Jackie Simmons, for the TEDx at Teneo Paseo. And I believe it was called Have the Talk That Saves Lives, or Have the Talk to Stop Suicide. I don't know. You can go to JackieTEDx.com, and it's the shortcut to the YouTube video, so you can watch that if you want. She shares her memories of the day of Stephanie's first suicide attempt. My memories of that day are very different. You see, we lived in a townhouse, and me being the oldest of the 3 girls, I got to have a bedroom in the basement. Finally get to have my own space, while my mom, our stepfather, and my 2 sisters slept on the top floor. The only thing that I remember about this day was the morning after Stephanie's suicide attempt. And what I remember is coming up the stairs from the basement to the main level and seeing that Stephanie got to have a sleepover on the living room futon with our mom, and me being pissed. I was so mad that my sister got to have a sleepover with our mom, and I had never gotten that chance. Granted, I was 15 and not necessarily thinking about anything other than myself. And that's the memory that my brain saved for me to remember. What really happened was an entire day spent at the hospital while my sister Stephanie was being evaluated. Apparently, myself, my sister Jamie, and mom, I have no idea what my stepdad was doing, but I was told that we played card games while we sat at the hospital all day while Stephanie was being taken care of. I have no memory of this. The only thing I remember is me being jealous that my sister got one-on-one time with mom. It wasn't until after hearing Stephanie's talk and hearing our mom's TEDx talk and having all of these conversations that I even remembered that little. But it did touch me in a way that I wanted to do something about it. Hence my involvement in the Teen Suicide Prevention Society. But there were other things that touched my life that also led to my involvement. You see, before the mission started in, Stephanie's talk was August of 2019, and the Teen Suicide Prevention Society was launched in April of 2020, right before the schools closed down. Prior to that, I had a friend in high school who tried and survived. After graduation, I had a friend in high school who died. Then there started to be announcements on the news about a gifted singer, a famous comedian, a talented actor. It started to come up more and more. Then COVID hit, and the numbers across the demographics quadrupled, if not more. And it was very hard to know that we had launched this mission and we're getting ready to go into the schools, to have the schools shut down. So for the past couple of years, we've been doing several things. We've been studying how the teenage brain really works. We have fine-tuned the talk that saves lives. We also have the talks that stop bullying, the talks that stop negative thinking, and the talks that stop self-sabotage. And all of those are available on our website at teensuicidepreventionsociety.com. And we even offer a training program where you can become a certified advocate in these talks. So you can then share the talks with your schools, your communities, your friends. But that's off on a tangent. Over the course of the last 2 to 3 years, while we've been studying and putting everything together, I have met some phenomenal people where something has touched their lives, and instead of choosing to be a victim, they chose to do something about it. And that was the launch of this podcast. And I'm sure you've met people where you've heard of them in the news, where something tragic had happened, and they chose to do something about it so no other family or person would be affected by it again. So that is the purpose behind these podcast episodes. And the fun part is I get to share. I get to share what I have experienced with you. And I hope that it touches and inspires you in a way that you choose to move forward in a positive manner instead of a negative. And yeah, that sounds a little whimsical, hippy dippy, woo, whatever you want to call it. But this is what I found. I've noticed that when you hold space for someone to speak their truth without fear, they become empowered because they feel heard. Now, the right to be heard, I've heard people talk about it being a necessary human right. I don't know if there's been any actual research on it, but I do remember reading a book that talked about how humans need to feel heard. We need to know that we are making an impact and contributing to our community, no matter what community that is. that we are contributing to the family, we are contributing to the tribe. So one of the things that I decided, one of the rules that I live by now, is I hold space where someone can speak their truth without fear. To go beyond that, I promise to listen without judgment, and I respond with love. I didn't realize the importance of these 3 rules when I came up with them. I didn't understand the importance of these 3 rules when I first wrote them down. And I wrote them down as part of an assignment for a podcasting class that I took, which is really funny because that podcast that I took for that class was called Adulting Sucks, But It Doesn't Have to. And I created that podcast because at that point in time, I thought being an adult sucked. I'm not doing that podcast anymore because I wasn't serious about it. It was for fun. So I might occasionally do an episode, but I don't foresee that. But these 3 rules that I created, speak your truth without fear, listen without judgment, and respond with love, I realized these were the tools or the rules. These were the rules that I created when I found out I was going to be a mom. And I didn't realize these were rules that I was creating. I just remember having the conversation with my husband when we found out we were pregnant, that I wanted to make sure that our child could talk to us about anything and not have to worry about an immediate consequence. There would be consequences, don't get me wrong. There have always been consequences to our son's actions, but it wouldn't be immediate. Because I remember living in fear of getting a 1 centimeter scrape on the side of the car from where I had gotten a little too close to a fire hydrant, and having to face my stepfather to tell him that there was damage to the car. Oh my God, it was 1 centimeter, but I was in so much fear of this man that I was terrified to tell him because I did not know how he was going to react. I did not want that for my child. So after explaining this to my husband, he agreed that he will do his best not to instantly respond. But we would give our child, well, now son, because we know it's a son. But at the time we didn't know, but we would give them space. We would give them the opportunity to speak, to share what happened, to share what they were feeling, what was happening. And yeah, there would be consequences to whatever actions he took, but there would be no immediate knee-jerk response. There would be no immediate yelling and screaming or you're grounded for life kind of comments. And in fact, it's very interesting how life has turned because of these rules. These rules these rules help me create not only the safe space for my son, but for my coaching clients as well. Because they know that once they enter a Zoom call or meet me in an office, that there is a bubble of protection, for lack of a better word. That they know that anything they say, it doesn't matter if it's quiet, it doesn't matter if it's yelling and screaming. There is no judgment. And they have a right to be heard. And I always respond with, thank you for sharing. And what can I do to help? Okay, maybe not always respond with what can I do to help? Because sometimes they don't know what kind of help they need. Sometimes the answer is, okay, what can I do to help support you? And I'll give you the best example that I can think of at the moment. You see, the prompt, I have something to tell you and I don't know how you're going to react, actually came from my son. He he's off at college. He's a freshman in college right now. But he came home over the weekend to do laundry and whatever. And I came downstairs into the dining room, going to make myself a cup of coffee, and he stopped me with that sentence. And of course, a million things are flying through my head. What in the world could possibly have happened that my son would think that I would give him a bad reaction? But I remained calm. I took a deep breath and said, okay, what is it that you have to share with me? What he shared was that he had broken up with his girlfriend. Now, in my mind, there were several immediate responses, everything from what took you so long to is that all to this is no big deal. But none of that came out of my mouth because I didn't know what he needed to hear. So my response was, okay, I still love you. What do you need from me? Are you looking for feedback? Are you looking for advice? Do you need breakup ice cream? Do I need to go to the store and pick up some mint chocolate chip? I mean, what do you need right now to feel supported? And the response I got was a laugh. And I don't need anything but a hug, which of course he got. And I got to thank you for not giving him a negative reaction because they had been together for almost 5 years. And I know that it was a serious relationship, but there were red flags I saw. But as a parent, it's not our job to fix what we see is wrong in our kids' life. The only thing we could do is be there for when they ask for assistance. We can offer to give advice, make suggestions, but it's up to them to ask for it. You see, another thing that I found out was there would be times that I would call my mom, one of my friends, and would vent because I had a bad day. Or I would share with the prospect of a new job opportunity in a different state. And instead of asking if I was looking for feedback, if they just needed to be a sounding board and bounce ideas off of me, they would try to tell me what they thought needed to be done next. Now, part of that, I will admit, is my fault for not setting the stage. I did not tell them that I was calling just to share, or I was calling just to vent, or that I was looking for advice or an opinion. I also did not check to see if they were available to be part of that conversation in that particular moment. Because they could have been multitasking and they could have been having a really bad day and needed me to hold space for them. See, that's the wonderful thing about communication. It's also its downfall. A lot of things have changed over the decades. And yeah, I am saying decades, even though I'm in my early 40s. See, I remember sitting down and being at the dining room table with the family eating dinner. And we would talk. And it would always start out the same way. How was school? And I remember rolling my eyes and just saying it was fine because I didn't want to talk about it. But every now and then we'd talk about something that happened in whatever class or after school or project or whatever. What I remember about those conversations is not a whole lot. But what I realized is those conversations helped process the emotions that happened during the day and helped me realize whether something was totally devastating or whether it was no big deal. And we try, at least in my household, we try to do family dinner. But there's always things that pop up in the way. There's this meeting that I need to be on. There's that training. Our son's in class. My husband's got to go to work, whatever. That we never really, or when we were all sitting down, it was usually in front of the TV watching a movie or something. It wasn't talking. So that's why I wanted to share this podcast. That's why I wanted to share the power of communication, the power of being touched and then empowered to do something else. So you'll notice over the course of this podcast, there's going to be several different types of episodes. There's going to be episodes where Ace and I talk about a particular topic, or her giving me feedback on my independent episodes. Or we talk about one of the people that we've interviewed over the past month. This way we get to share not only our stories, but other people's stories. We get to share things that are easy to talk about, fun to talk about, and then things that are not so easy to talk about. But if you're interested in learning more about what we are doing, what I am doing, well, at this particular moment, we're still building that platform. But you can connect with me on my mini site. It's letter K, letter T, number 4, letter T, letter S, letter P, letter S.com. KT for TSPS. That's my abbreviation for Katie for Teen Suicide Prevention Society. So it's a cute little URL. You can find out everything Katie there. You can also get more information to connect with me if you're interested about this podcast. Whether you want to be interviewed, whether you know somebody who wants to be interviewed, or if there's a topic you would like us to cover. This is a judgment-free zone. I am willing to talk about any topic, and I will say any topic. I will speak my truth without fear. I will listen without judgment, and I will respond with love. And if that means me talking about something that I personally find uncomfortable because it is information you are seeking, so be it. I want to hold space for everyone to feel like they are heard. So that's it for this episode. Welcoming you to the crazy world of Katie. I know that there was no linear path for this podcast. It was pretty much me going with whatever popped into my mind. So on that note, thank you for being you. You are the only one qualified to be you. So own it. Be not only authentically yourself, but unapologetically yourself. There's no one else better qualified. So hugs to everyone, and I'll see you on the next round of Touched and Empowered.